Welcome to this edition of In This Corner. Al Albert along with the champ, Sean O'Grady. And Sean, the heavyweight division certainly with a new look. And tomorrow night at Madison Square Garden, some big names jockeying for position. The main event, Michael Dokes versus Razor-Ruddock. And Sean, the winner could be facing Mike Tyson pretty soon, or even the new champ, Buster Douglas.
Well, finally, somebody in the top 10 of the heavyweight division is getting busy. With this fight, they can either fight Tyson, like you say, they could fight Holyfield. It opens up a big opportunity for all those heavyweights. George Foreman, even on the horizon in that. In that fight, we're looking at a former world champion in Dokes and a up-and-coming fighter in Ruddock. I think I like Dokes. I've looked over the past records over the past year. Dokes has been the more active. He's had 5 fights in the last year, the last one in February. Razor-Ruddock has not been active enough.
Also that night, in I guess we could call the seniors division, you'll be seeing Mike Weaver against James Bone Crusher Smith, and the winner or maybe the loser might be hearing from Caesar's Tahoe is the scene of this, the 21st fight in the 3-year comeback of George Foreman, who joined us tonight in this corner. The second coming of George Foreman has vaulted the former heavyweight champ back into the boxing limelight. Over the past 3 years, Foreman, now at the age of 42, has won all 20 comeback fights, 19 by knockout against hand-picked competition, leading to the January encounter with Jerry Cooney. Cooney coming out of a 2.5-year retirement for a big money matchup with Foreman. And George rose to the occasion, demonstrating his enormous power and an arsenal of combinations unveiled for the first time. Last weekend, reports had Foreman signed to fight Mike Tyson with a tune-up against Adelson Rodriguez. Fact or fiction? We talked to Foreman at length about that and much, much more. Is there a signed agreement for a Rodriguez and then a Tyson fight?
Right now, I'd like to think there are signed agreements, although I'll take them. You know, I'll sign. If you got one, I'll sign.
Okay, so in other words, it's still in the talking stage. Because there was a report this weekend that it had been done, and you know, big money offered around. But
as it stands right now, everything is in the talking stage. I got to fight with Mike Jameson, which is the head of the list, and I hope to put everything I got into that boxing match. And I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch.
In your comeback, you've had a request for the title. Okay, now that Tyson has lost the title, are you more interested in seeing if you could hook up with Buster Douglas?
I never did chase Mike Tyson per se. I was only after him and used his name because he was the heavyweight champ of the world. He's no longer heavyweight champ of the world, but I still desire to be heavyweight champ of the world. And I'm not going to be sidetracked by trying to chase down Mike Tyson. I want to be heavyweight champ of the world.
Has there been any conversation with Douglas? Can you give us any behind the scenes on whether there is even interest on Douglas's part?
I was in Las Vegas with Mr. Wynn at the Mirage Hotel, and we were awfully close to Buster Douglas, George Foreman heavyweight championship fight. I mean, we got as close as, I mean, only a pin drop or a drop of rain could have separated us. It didn't happen, but it was only because of the legal entanglement that he's gotten himself in. And I think that's pretty close.
If you were Mike Tyson's manager, what advice would you have for him?
Well, I'd tell him that if I was Mike Tyson's manager, I'd tell him take a cruise, a 2-year trip to Europe and back. Forget about boxing. Spend some of that money. Come back hungry again, start from the bottom, and become heavyweight champ of the world again. Mike Tyson reigned as a terrorist. I mean, he had this reign of terror. It's all over now. It's all over. And he's probably going to have to get back and acquire some skills to go with it, to take the place of the terror he had. It's gone now. He's going to have something else.
If you had your attitude back then when you were fighting in your 20s, the same attitude you have now, would have George Foreman's picture been painted differently even then?
I don't know. You have to, I'm a product of all the mistakes and just my life in general. I am the sum total of it. I had to go through everything I went through to become what I am today. So it's hard to predict or to even suggest what I could have been. in the past. I like George Foreman now, but I'm appreciative that I've had all the mistakes in the past because I'm not going to make them again in the present. There's no human being in the boxing business that works as hard as George Foreman. And when you face the other guy across the corner, if he can't be as focused as I am, if he's half as focused as I am, then he's finished. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't run around. And there's no fellow who can meet me on the other end of that corner who does those things can dare challenge me. I don't care who he is. If you just had a party a month ago, you can't fight George Foreman because I haven't had a party since 1977.
Looking ahead the next few fights for George Foreman, are there any in particular, any guys out there you would like? If, for instance, you can't arrange to get Tyson, you can't arrange to get Buster Douglas.
Well, it's my idea that the one thing I'd like to do is corner the market of boxing. The fight with Mike Jameson is very important because he's a good fighter. And, of course, I'd like to get past that obstacle. Then I'd like to get the Holyfields and the Douglas and the Tysons, clean up the whole picture, retire, and not fight again until I'm 50.
Well, you've heard of new and improved, George, old and improved.
Lately, haven't we? And while everyone laughs about the parade of stiffs who masquerade as George's challengers, the preacher continues to laugh all the way to the bank. Foreman had already bankrolled $1.5 million in his last fight against Jerry Cooney, and tonight he was ready to pocket another cool $200 grand for a short workout against Mike Jameson. Who? Well, the only notoriety this guy can claim is that he's one of Mike Tyson's sparring partners. Let's show you what happened in State Line, Nevada here. As we pick it up in the third round, Foreman in the white trunks, Jameson in the dark, unless you didn't know, and the preacher man making quick work with a right uppercut, sending Jameson's mouthpiece to the other side of Nevada. In the fourth round, Foreman giving Jameson a beating here, and at 2:16 of the fourth, the big left knocks Jameson out and down at 2:16 in the fourth. Foreman 21-0 on the comeback trail, knockout number 20. Next up, a guy by the name of Addison Rodriguez for George Foreman before perhaps a huge payday against, yes, Mike Tyson. George wants to
continued his boxing comeback Tuesday night with a scheduled 10-rounder against yet another unheralded opponent. Read that pigeon. Foreman, who says he's 41, faced Mike Jameson in Lake Tahoe. And in case you were wondering, yes, this was a heavyweight bout. There he is, all 260 pounds of George Foreman, fresh off January's KO of Jerry Cooney. With under a minute and a half in the third, Foreman continues to pound Jameson, and Jameson goes down.
You know, he only knew about this fight a week ago, and now he's showing it.
Fourth round, it would be all Foreman. A straight left and a left hook, and it's over. Foreman may be a little bit closer to fighting Mike Tyson. Foreman wins by a fourth-round knockout, the 62nd KO of his career. He has won all 21 of his fights since returning to the ring in March of 1987. Former world champion Aaron Pryor was denied a license to box in the state of Nevada. The reason? Pryor failed the required eye examination. Pryor, who is attempting to make a comeback, is legally blind in his left eye, the result of a boxing injury.
Six fighters through the first 6 months of the year dominated the boxing menu. But the oldest of the six was the main course.
I'm going to go to Baskin-Robbins, and I'm going to eat every flavor ice cream in the world. And then when you start pushing and shoving me, you're going to have to push and shove a whole franchise.
While George professed to eat a lot of ice cream, an unknown named Terry Norris ate up a legend named Sugar.
This is my last fight. Thank you for coming out. God bless you all. I don't feel bad. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I've had a great career, and I want to find for myself, and I did that tonight.
It got to a point where I didn't want to watch anymore. It was just a terrible sight for me to see a man such as Ray Lynch be getting beaten the way he was getting beat.
And there were fears we would see the same thing when Thomas Hearns took on Virgil Hill in June. But Hearns confounded both Hill and the experts.
The old man can come through. The man is not old until he says he's old. I'm not old.
The first half of the year in boxing could best be summed up in 3 words: age before beauty.
I'm going to show the whole world that the age 40 or 50 is not a death sentence.
Former heavyweight champion Larry Holmes certainly had the age, But his comeback fight was no thing of beauty. However, his post-fight swan dive on Trevor Berbick qualified as only the second best dive of the year. The best was by professional wrestler Darryl Dukes, who took a solid right to the shoulder and was down for the count in 12 seconds of the first round in Mark Gastineau's pro boxing debut. Gastineau's career may soon be put out to pasture, where George Foreman is perfectly at home.
People like it.
know that they could be future cheeseburgers?
I'm telling you, don't say that. Don't say that. The one thing you don't want to say around is cheeseburger. Don't let the bull hear you.
And there was no shortage of bull in the Tyson-Ruddock fights.
I'm gonna make you my girlfriend.
Let me tell you something to you. There's something you can't buy in that class, and you don't got none of that. We'll see.
You know you're really a transvestite and you like me.
The fight, after the first fight, eventually led to the second fight.
Now the right combination. Steele steps in. Is it over? It's over. It's over.
Get your next referee and bring him on back again.
I fear no man, no mortal, nobody but God, so we can do it again.
I'd love a rematch. We're going to get our rights so the fight is on.
Yo, I know he was punching harder this fight than he was last fight. God.
So right now, Donovan Ruddock is in the hospital.
If his jaw was broken out, you could never tell by the way he was fighting. I could tell we're going to fight again.
Make no mistake about it, boxing's brightest star in the first half of the year was its oldest. The high priest of the 40-something generation made the fight game fun again. And in the process, he overshadowed everything and everyone, including the heavyweight champion. And when George took Evander Holyfield the full 12 rounds, his stature as American hero was as solid as some of the shots he would take.
You might not ever in your whole life see a guy at 42 be so determined as George and go out and fight a great fight. He had the points, but I made a point. The point is, if you can live, you can dream.
Tyson exiting stage left. Boxing's heavyweight division is coming up a little light in the contender category. As Charlie Steiner reports, Evander Holyfield is racing for the 3 R's: Riddick, Ruddock, and the ridiculous.
With Mike Tyson now effectively out of the picture, Evander Holyfield's grip on the heavyweight championship appears more secure than ever. ESPN has learned that as early as this coming week, Holyfield will announce he'll be fighting 42-year-old Larry Holmes in late May or early June. It's going to take place at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Holyfield is expected to make about $20 million, Holmes about $7 million.
Evander Holyfield and his brain trust is not avoiding anybody, but I think what they're trying to do is make the most money possible in the least amount of time with the least risk, which if you look at it in the bottom line is what a manager is supposed to be: most money, least risk.
Evander Holyfield is very, very secure in his position as the heavyweight champion of the world. He hasn't ducked anyone. He's tried to fight the best. He's signed to fight Mike Tyson twice. We'll just go on. I mean, it's not his fault.
Duva's job as Evander's promoter is to look for a situation, the highest reward, the lowest risk.
The Holmes-Holyfield fight will be an interesting scenario because the things that Larry Holmes was able to do to Ray Mercer to win that bout are all things he probably wouldn't be able to do against Evander Holyfield. He will not be able to sucker Evander Holyfield into things. He will not be able to prevent Evander Holyfield from throwing the punches he wants. But the one thing that Larry Holmes knows is that Evander Holyfield is not a huge puncher.
Holyfield, now a keen observer of the business side of boxing, knows that a Holmes fight can generate more money than, say, a fight against Riddick Bowe.
When Tyson and myself came about, we was on ABC, CBS, NBC, free network, so people got an opportunity to see us a lot more than up-and-coming fighters, and a lot of, and the boxing sense, a lot of young fighters didn't get the exposure. Now the older fighters that people have seen coming back, and people say, well, we'd rather see a name fighter like a George Foreman, a Larry Holmes.
So where does that leave the rest of the pack? The Riddick Bowes, the Razor Ruddocks, the Michael Moores, the Lennox Lewises, and even the Tommy Morrisons.
The heavyweight division, now that Mike Tyson has been excerpted from its ranks, is sort of like Evander Holyfield and the Seven Dwarfs.
The Seven Dwarfs include Big George Foreman, who is back in the ring in April against Alex Stewart. The 43-year-old Foreman, who says he's in his last year in the ring, may end up fighting Tommy the Duke Morrison sometime during the late summer if all goes according to promoter Bob Arum's master plan. Meanwhile, where does that leave Riddick and Ruddock and Lewis and Moore?
They need to fight each other because it's obvious, maybe it's got to be patently obvious to them by now. Unless they do that, they're not going to make any money against anybody.
So while Mike Tyson's considerable aura takes a leave of absence from the heavyweight division, Evander and the Seven Dwarfs will have no trouble making ends meet. I'm Charlie Steiner, ESPN.
Boy, how sad is the division when Larry Holmes has all of a sudden become the marquee guy to go in there against Evander Holyfield. Also, you've got to feel sorry for a guy like Evander who did everything right. He's not in trouble. You never hear any kind of problems with him. He can't get the big payday anymore because Tyson's headed to jail.
We may never see that $100 million fight. The pay-per-view industry, Tyson really was, Foreman to an extent, but Tyson, that's the thing that happened in that industry, and right now he is out of the picture and probably forever.
Earlier in the show, you heard from heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield. Of course, the fight that everybody wanted to see was Holyfield versus Tyson. That was originally scheduled to take place November 8th, but that fight couldn't come off because Tyson had bruised ribs. And then came the indictment. The fight was further postponed, and now Holyfield says that he will not fight Mike Tyson unless he serves his prison term completely or until the conviction is overturned.
Well, obviously, this whole sordid affair has sent ripples throughout the sport of boxing, as big as a tidal wave, or tidal waves, if you will. How is the sport reacting tonight? We have a sampling from our Jim Huber.
2 years ago on Monday night, almost to the very hour, Mike Tyson fell for the first time in his career. And the boxing world stood absolutely stunned. He was, after all, invincible, wasn't he? That he could be beaten by a jury of his peers 24 months later simply had that same world busy pointing fingers.
I saw it coming, I must tell you, when he left Kevin and Steve and me to get involved with Don King. The handwriting was on the wall.
I blame King. You know, I go after King any chance I get. You know, I seem to be the only person doing anything about it, saying anything.
People like Don King have not been good for the sport. I think with Tyson out of the picture, King's power will be greatly diminished. And if King faded from the scene as well, boxing would benefit.
There was an immediate display of moral indignity from the reigning heavyweight champion with whom Tyson was scheduled to share a proposed $100 million fight somewhere along the line.
I don't think it's right for me to fight anybody who's been in charge of guilty of such crime. I feel that, you know, I have respect for the system.
But with Tyson out of the picture, other familiar faces now have a shot at much larger harvests.
I wanted to fight for the title, but it really put a bad taste. You don't want to inherit a big position in boxing by way of a downfall of a young man at all. You want it, but you don't want it in that fashion.
The way I look at this sincerely is that everybody's replaceable. It's not the end of the world.
Boxing withstand a lot of devastating blow, and it's a very strong sport. It's a powerful sport, and it will recover.
The media can once again focus on the decent young men who are the prize fighters, young and not so young, like Foreman and Larry Holmes and Evander Holyfield.
But as the sport busies itself rearranging its furniture, there stands Mike Tyson. What of him?
He already was eroding. His skills were terribly down. AD after Douglas. I don't see when he gets out at 32 that he's really going to be the threat that he has been in the past as a great, great talent.
He's a good man. He just needed some good friends at a time in his life he just didn't have them. And I feel sorry for that. But there's still hope. Lots of hope.
If Mike requested to see me, then I would come and see him, and I would talk to him. I would love to be Mike's friend, even now. I think now is a time where that people really need a friend.
A friend, think of it, in a sport which has never distinguished itself for brotherly love. Jim Hubert, CNN Sports.
And you're wondering perhaps about Tyson's fighting future. Jose Suleiman, president of the WBC, says his body will take no position on Tyson fighting until sentencing, March the 6th, and he could fight while under appeal. IBF President Bob Lee says if incarcerated, Tyson would not be rated or permitted to fight for the title. The same holds if the case is under appeal. But neither body would sanction his fights if Tyson were behind bars. and it would be interesting to see if any promoters or state boxing commissions would handle a Tyson fight at this stage in any case. Hannah?
Well, Mike Tyson was arguably the most popular boxer of our time. The question now is, will the sport survive his conviction? Other champions have gone to jail. Boxers have died in the ring. Fights have been fixed. One bout was even televised nationally from a prison where one of the fighters was serving time for armed robbery. Yes, boxing has survived many an outrage, but its future now depends on the talent that is waiting in the wings. And our Michael Cowman takes a look at 3 of the sport's most promising young athletes.
As Mike Tyson loses his freedom, Evander Holyfield says goodbye to the biggest payday of his career. Their planned showdown was expected to earn Holyfield a minimum of $32 million. Now he's left searching for an opponent.
We're just in a new era of heavyweights, you know. The Lennox Lewis, the Michael Moore, and the Riddick Bowe.
They are 3 of the best heavyweights boxing has to offer, all young, hungry, and undefeated. Michael Moore's a natural right-hander who fights southpaw with power. A relative newcomer to the heavyweight division, less than 2 years ago, he was 50 pounds lighter, fighting as a light heavyweight.
It's like the waiting game. But if I was to get the call, oh yeah, jump for joy. Because I'd be the heavyweight champion of the world.
Lennox Lewis is the 1988 Olympic super heavyweight gold medalist. He disposed of Riddick Bowe in the finals, then moved back to his native England to avoid what he calls the gold medal media hype.
The champion right now is Holyfield, but he's there for the taking. Like I said, me, myself, I'm knocking at the door. I'm just waiting for them to open it.
Riddick Bowe is the highest-ranked heavyweight of the trio, known for his quick jab and his quick wit.
It's unfortunate that I wouldn't fight the best fighter of my era. I feel like Tyson would have been the best fighter of my era to face. But now I have to contend with these other knuckleheads.
Well, Moore, Bowe, and Lewis can all boast unbeaten ring records. They have, for the most part, fattened up on marginal competition. And that raises a question. Just how legitimate are they when it comes to being contenders in the heavyweight division?
One loss at this point in my career could mean a lot. You know, the fact that I go in there with an unblemished record makes people realize and stand up and say, who is this guy?
It doesn't matter. As long as I keep knocking people out, they'll recognize me. It doesn't matter who the guy is in the opposite corner.
Well, Holyfield's management says either Foreman, Holmes, or Bowe lie ahead for the champ. One boxing manager has it narrowed down even more.
I'm hoping that right here at the Mirage Hotel on May the 8th is where that fight will take place.
Oh, I would love for that to be my next fight. If the fight happens in May, then you'll be looking at the new heavyweight champion of the world.
Well, of course, I would like to fight Riddick Bowe because he's a young fighter and he's up and coming. And I think right now people are kind of tired of me fighting people that they feel that wouldn't be a challenge.
And some other young hopefuls will be waiting in line. I'm Michael Cowman, CNN Sports.
Well, it's great to see the young talent of the sport, the up-and-coming talent, but thank goodness for the heartwarming stories like George Foreman and now Larry Holmes coming back. It's sort of ironic that they're almost returning to save the sport at a
We have to talk, of course, about Mike Tyson. We've been talking about him, it seems, since before the trial, since well before the trial. I have to ask you, first of all, what is the long-range effect of all of this going to be on the sport?
Well, you know, you have to figure the long-range effect is not going to be that as bad as it may seem right now. I mean, boxing survived the loss of Muhammad Ali. It will certainly survive the loss of Mike Tyson. In the immediate future, however, we lose the gem that everybody wanted to see, which was Tyson Holyfield. We also lose the possibility of Tyson George Foreman. Those are big fights. But you got to figure 2 or 3 years down the road, Tyson would have been on his way down anyway. And someone, boxing history shows us, always comes along to replace these guys.
Incidentally, before we get too far astray, the date for sentencing originally March 6th, and now that's not going to happen.
No, now it's been moved back to March 27th at the request of Tyson's defense team, and I understand the prosecution wants to move it back yet another week, so it looks like Tyson won't be sentenced until April 3rd. He buys himself at least another month of freedom.
Well, I feel like that's all we've been talking about in the sport of boxing for a long, long time. How many talk shows have you done? How many talk shows have I done over the course of several weeks? You just saw the show that we ran right here on ESPN just before we came on tonight. Everybody, it seems, has an opinion about what holds forth, both for Mike Tyson, the heavyweight division, and the sport of boxing in general.
Boxing has always been a showcase for the good, the bad, and the ugly anyway. I mean, you can't hurt it and you can't help it. It'll be here. It was here before Tyson came, and boxing will be here long after George Foreman and Tyson have left.
Mike Tyson has a short-term effect on the business, and that is that all the fans that had looked forward to seeing the great confrontation between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson are going to be deprived of that.
Well, I'm looking to fight the end of May or early June.
Do you know who yet?
Most likely Ready Bowe, George Foreman.
I do believe that boxing benefits because Mike Tyson was a bad apple. He gave boxing a terrible image, and his absence from the sports maybe will allow sponsors to come back so we can see more boxing on free network television.
I can't imagine Mike Tyson getting back in the ring. He's 25 years old. Even if it were 10 years down the road, it would be very, very difficult to imagine that. I mean, I think there's, at the very least, his boxing career is pretty much over.
Who was that last guy?
I don't know, but he looks familiar. You know, a couple of thoughts struck me out of that. Number one, my opinion and Dan Duva's were about the same, which worries me a little bit. Number two is that would Bob Arum be saying the same thing if Tyson was under contract to him?
That's a very good question. Also, you heard Holyfield talk about what might be next for him. Actually, what might be next for him is not what he talked about there.
No, not at all. Apparently now it looks like they're going to fight Larry Holmes sometime in May, which I think is a pretty interesting fight considering Holmes' performance against Ray Mercer last week.
So what do you do on June 19th?
Well, I kind of thought I'd hang out here in Las Vegas and watch Evander Holyfield and Larry Holmes fight.
That's a good idea. I think it might be actually an entertaining fight, and a lot of people are really giving Larry Holmes a legitimate chance to win that fight.
Well, you know, the thing is, in beating Ray Mercer, Larry Holmes may have proven that almost anything is possible. Certainly, Evander Holyfield cannot afford to take him lightly. He knows that from his fight with Burt Cooper. And so I'm sure Holyfield will be as motivated as he can possibly be against Larry Holmes. And Larry Holmes, one thing we can say about him, he got himself in extremely good shape to fight Ray Mercer, and you know he'll do that again.
New rankings at a WBC released today, and one thing I know for certain is there is a very angry manager about the sport of boxing.
Yeah, and Rock Newman has never been angry before, has he? No. Anyway, and in this case, strangely enough, he has a right to be angry because Razor-Ruddock was pushed ahead of his fighter, Riddick Bowe, in the WBC rankings. Lennox Lewis is 4th, Michael Moore is 5th. And the only reason you can think of for Riddick Bowe being pushed ahead of Razor-Ruddock, other than the fact that maybe Don King wanted Jose Sulaiman to do it, because then the next guy would fight against Evander Holyfield after Mike Tyson gets sentenced. The only reason you can think of it is that Ruddock has fought more often against better quality of opposition. But let's face it, it's wrong to move Riddick Bowe down when he's already in the 2nd spot.
How does that happen? Those rankings are so objective.
Well, I think they're objective, and certainly they're fair. So you can't make the case that something would go on as far as shenanigans. No, the fact of the matter is, I mean, it doesn't take a great cynic to feel that something happened here to make the hierarchy of WBC want Razor-Ruddock to be 2nd instead of Riddick Bowe. And this is to take nothing away from Razor-Ruddock. Fought 2 very tough fights against Mike Tyson. He just beat Greg Page, although it wasn't a great performance. And so he's a very good fighter. You can nitpick as to who you think should be 2nd or 3rd, but once Bowe is 2nd, there's no reason when he doesn't lose to push him down.
Yeah, Riddick Bowe has done nothing wrong so far, and he's done nothing to disprove his statistics and the fact that he should be there. Fact is, he should.
More boxing now. Olympic gold medalist Oscar de la Hoya back in the ring taking on Frankie Avalar in Tahoe. No word if Annette Funicello was at ringside. La Hoya all over Avalar. In the 4th round, the flurry of punches eventually knocks Avalar down for the 2nd time in the fight. Frankie would get up, but as soon as he did, you know what happens. De La Hoya all over him again. This one was easy. The ref had to stop it in round 4. La Hoya wins it in a 4th round TKO. Another boxing from that Lewis-Tucker undercard. Mildred Taylor stopping Henry Hughes after 2 rounds. Hughes could not continue after the 2nd round because of an injured right shoulder. And Hector Macho Camacho stopping Eric Podolak at 26 seconds of round. Least likely to survive by his high school classmates growing up in Oklahoma, Tommy Morrison will try to survive when he enters the ring Monday night against Big George Foreman in Morrison's biggest fight of his turbulent career. Our Charlie Steiner was in Vegas for the tipping of the scales.
The 24-year-old Morrison stepped on the scale first and weighed in at exactly 226 pounds, which is exactly where he wanted to be. George Foreman then got on the scale, and Big George wasn't as big as he thought he would be. Only 256 pounds. Tail of the tape gives Foreman most of the advantage, 30 pounds, 2 inches in height, 1 inch in reach. Age, though, could, of course, be the telling story here. 20 years age difference. After the weigh-in, we talked with both fighters, and George was quite surprised, in fact, at what he weighed.
Thought I was 265. I had no idea I'd gotten that small. I was wondering why my pants were fitting me. I didn't know what was wrong. But I'm lower than the Holyfield fight was a pound lower. And I had a good breakfast this morning, so I must have been even lower than that.
Between now and fight time, how much more weight do you suppose you will put on?
I'll be about 265 for certain, because I get a chance to eat some lunch, some dinner, and then tomorrow, boy, I'll be 265 for sure.
I've been here once before, and I kind of felt the pressure, what it's like to be in front of a huge group of people, also fighting for a world title. And I didn't handle it well the first time, but it's been over 2 years ago. It's been a long, hard climb. I've gotten used to the idea, and another thing is I've started accepting responsibility to go along with being a heavyweight champion.
Tommy Morrison, of course, not quite yet the heavyweight champion of the world. He may take a step in that direction tomorrow night in his battle with George Foreman. We will have highlights, analysis, and interviews immediately after the fight on the 11:30 Eastern Time edition of SportsCenter. For now, Charlie Steiner, ESPN in Las Vegas, sending it back to SportsCenter.
Thank you, Charles. Later on in the big show, we devote the Sunday conversation to George Foreman, his own self, boxer, role model, well, stomach role model, and, of course, sitcom star.
Yeah, he could be bigger than Seinfeld.
Let's get the record straight. George Foreman never fought John L. Sullivan. He never boxed 50 rounds bare knuckle. That little boy in the commercial, George Foreman V, is not his great-great-grandson. But yes, it is 20 years since he bashed Joe Frazier for the heavyweight championship of the world, and now he fights again in what he says may be his last bout against Tommy Morrison. He and Nolan Ryan represent something priceless in sports today. They are time having stopped still. The Sunday Conversation. Charlie Steiner with George Foreman, Ageless Wonder.
George, what would you miss the most about not fighting anymore?
This time I've really enjoyed the crowd. I go to the workouts and I talk to the public. I meet people. I see people who've been pulling and praying for me, and I'm going to miss that. Before I work out, you may want to ask a couple of questions of the guy who was champion of the world 20 years ago. I'm going to really miss it, knowing that someone else is going to have it when I leave. It's going to be hard to go. I'm going to jump up in the night and miss it. You know, when I see you guys following another great champion, I'm going to drop a tear or two.
How are you going to substitute the adrenaline that you get from the attention that you receive? I mean, is that a source of concern? You're going to have to get on and be a regular guy.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest with you, for 10 years, I was a regular guy. That's the reason I enjoy the public so much. During the years, nobody knew me. I didn't have the mustache and the hair anymore. I was just some great big 300-pound guy walking around. People would grab me and embrace me. Hey, big one, you can have the last steak. Hey, big guy, I'll give you a jump start. Hey, let me pay you. Nah.
And you missed being a fighter.
I thought I would miss it, but these people took great care of me because they liked me. So I'm not afraid to move back into just being a regular guy, because stewardess give you the bigger seat. They give you even an extra piece of meat. So people will take good care of you, but I'm just going to miss the action of the boxing and all the in crowd, that kind of thing. That can be hard, but people, they're going to take care of me. I'm going back up to 300 pounds. Biggin's going to get the extra meat at the butcher store. Some lady will walk in and say, I'll let him have it. He needs it.
Michael Jordan, you're a big basketball fan who, of course, had all sorts of problems in the past week with the media. He won't talk to the media. You have had a wonderful relationship with the media. What is the secret that you have had that apparently Michael and some others don't understand?
Well, you got to love it. You really got to love it, and you can't think of, and I had the first time around, I wanted to have the money. That's it. I wanted to be heavyweight champ of the world. The interviews, get away from me. Just give me the money, and everything else made me upset. Second time around, I realized, hey, if I could be champ of the world again, if I could be in front of the crowd in the ring, I'd talk to the reporters. I'd cut every clipping out. I'd read it. I'd love it. I'd paste it in the book. This time around, my kids can really believe I was there. So part of it is I love every aspect of sports. I still save the videos on the interviews. I love it. The thing that can make you survive is you got to love it.
Some feel, as Jordan does, that we infringe on his personal life.
But we don't. Who has a personal life in the first place? I lived for 10 years, and people knew every time my wife and me were having an argument, they'd pass it down the street, and I had to drop my head as I drive down the street. Foreman and Mrs. Foreman arguing again. She's packing up. She's going to leave him. So there's no such thing as a personal life. More people know about it when you're popular. But as a rule, neighbors know what's going on. You can live with it. I love it. People say all kind of things, but you never take it serious because nobody can take away who you are, what you do. You are that special person. You got to enjoy it. You got to enjoy it. If I was Michael Jordan, I'd read in the paper something about me, I'd tear it up, put it in some big paper, save it for my kids to remember it, my grandkids. Boy, I'd love to be him. I'd jump up and say, see there? I would love being Michael Jordan.
And there's George holding up the American flag in the center of the ring before thousands of impressed spectators and millions more of television viewers.
You came home from the Olympics disillusioned by the reaction that you received back home.
I was a teenager. There, I'd go to a party with my dashiki on, and I'd look on poster kids had on the wall at a party of a picture of John Carlos and Tommy Smith with the glove. They were popular, and there weren't any posters of George Foreman with the flag. And it was like, what are you doing here? That hurt for a long time because I was young. I didn't understand anything. I didn't do it as a protest or an anti-protest waving that flag. I just wanted everybody to know where I was from the United States of America. And I bowed to the judges and I waved. To this day, I'm still proud of that. And a lot of people did stop me on the street, friends of mine, and asked, how could you do that? And it hurt for a long time. As a matter of fact, they started putting a chip on my shoulder. And it was a long time before I dropped that chip because I did what I wanted to do. And people didn't like it. I was going to beat them up.
But that chip lingered for a long time, didn't it?
Long time. I mean, I had a lot of hate for anyone that would stand up to me and doubt me. I mean, I was mean. I didn't play mean.
But that also fed the image that you had in your first go-around and how Sonny Liston was, in fact, maybe a role model.
Yeah, because I was getting this chip building and I met Sonny Liston. He was my stablemate. He didn't speak to people. A lot of times people would ask for an autograph, he'd walk away. So I started to copy a lot of things from Sonny. I figured, hey, he's champ of the world. That's the way you treat people.
He also had the chip on his shoulder. He was the bad guy. And for the first portion of your career, so were you.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised how these things happen. I mean, one of my best friends asked me, why? Not a best friend, but in my neighborhood, how could you wave that American flag? And that started something within me. It was like, nobody, I'm not going to let anybody get close enough to hurt me again.
The source of it, or much of the source, was the flag then?
It all started there. It all started there. The proudest day of my life. Winning that gold medal, and someone would have the nerve to ask me, what did you do that for?
On Monday night, you go into the ring probably for the last time. You now have an opportunity to tell the folks how you would like them to remember you as a fighter.
Well, I don't truly want to be remembered as a fighter. Just want to be remembered as a fun guy. A guy who enjoyed what he was doing. When I got out there in the ring, the bell ring, I didn't want the cameras to leave off me. I wanted to still kind of speak and let everybody see me. And I was still trying to suck in my stomach, you know, like the average guy next door. I was having a lot of fun. It's fun working. If you're doing what you want to do, that's how I want to be remembered, just as a fun guy, not a boxer.
Chris? Well, if 130,000 Mexican fans gather, and it's not to watch a soccer ball kicked, it must be to watch Julio Cesar Chavez kick butt. The national hero / god will headline tomorrow's mammoth spectacle. 5 champions with 4 belts at stake. Boxing's all-time attendance record will be smashed when Azteca Stadium is filled by fans who paid as little as $1.65 per ticket. Of course, they won't be able to tell Julio Cesar from Julio Iglesias from those cheap seats. Now, today in Mexico City, challenger Greg Haugen in Las Vegas weighed in at the super lightweight limit of 140. The former IBF lightweight champ is a 25-1 underdog to that man, the unbeaten Chavez. Fighting in Mexico City for only the 3rd time in 85 bouts, he has promised the crowd that he'll be inspired and he will hammer Haugen, who's had the audacity to belittle Chavez's 84-0 record. Chavez says that when he sees Haugen, he, quote, wants to vomit. Look out, Greg. Terry Norris hopes to gain a shot at Chavez by defending his WBC super welterweight title against 12-1 long shot Maurice Blocker, the IBF welterweight champ. Norris says he, not Chavez, is pound for pound the best fighter. We'll have more on boxing's Grand Slam event later on in the show. 130,000 fans.
Can be said about Don King. If nothing else, boxing's most visible promoter is resilient and relentless. Tomorrow night in Mexico City, in front of an expected crowd of more than 100,000 fans who will pay as much as $850 for ringside seats and as little as $1.65 for nosebleed seats, 4 world champions will be on display. Most, of course, will be coming to see Julio Cesar Chavez. But somehow, some way, Don King will find his way to the center of attention. Just when you thought it was safe to watch boxing again.
On February the 20th, you will see history in the making on pay-per-view TV.
King is calling it the Grand Slam of boxing. Features 1 WBA and 3 WBC title fights. May not be a Grand Slam, but it is a bases-clearing triple. Leading off the undercard, Azuma Nelson goes against Gabriel Ruelas for the featherweight title. Super middleweight Michael Nunn meets little-known Irish Danny Morgan. The bout between super welterweight Terry Norris and Maurice Blocker should load up the bases. But more than 100,000 fans in Mexico City want to see their cleanup hitter, Julio Cesar Chavez, knock the stuffing out of Greg Haugen at Azteca Stadium.
Yo no sé si vaya a entrar esa gente.
He's not sure if there'll be 120,000 people
Pero
there.
si entran, pues sería algo muy motivante para mí.
He says, but if they do go, it would be the greatest motivating force for him.
Hype is built through the two fighters, not saying very many nice things about one another.
The only thing that I've said was that Julio fought 60 Tijuana cab drivers, you know, and I don't feel that he's an 84-0 fighter. I mean, you know, that's a pretty puffed-up record. Que Haugen, después de pelear conmigo, ya no va a querer pelear más en el boxeo.
That after fighting Julio, he won't want to step in the ring ever again in his life.
Le voy a dar la peor paliza de toda su vida.
He's going to give him the worst beating he's ever felt in life.
Y lo voy a prometer.
And he says he promises that.
While Chavez's record may include its fair share of tomato cans, he has won 5 world championships in 3 different weight categories. Greg Haugen is a tough cookie. He could give Chavez a bit of trouble. He's won his last 4 fights, 3 by knockout, since losing a close rematch to Hector Macho Camacho back in May of 1991.
I know Julio is a good fighter, and I'm a good fighter, too. So, you know, I've had people look by me before, and it's been a mistake for him. Me siento relajado.
He feels very relaxed.
Estoy un poco molesto solamente con Greg Haugen.
He says he only feels a little bothered with Greg Haugen.
Y solamente estoy esperando que se llegue el día de la pelea.
And all that he wants is to see the day of the fight come.
Them are fighting words. Chavez, 25-1 favorite to whack out Haugen tomorrow night. We're told now 130,000 will be in attendance. 23 of his wins lifetime have been in title fights. Chavez, by far and away, the most popular athlete in Mexico.
And welcome once again. I'm Chris Fowler along with nobody. A solo shot here. Something for everyone here. Hoops, pucks, links. In the NBA's Grand Slams in Salt Lake. But first, boxing's Grand Slam. 4 titles at stake, 130,000 Mexicans in the stands. They came to watch and worship their national treasure. Julio Cesar Chavez's popularity has no parallel in America. 5-time champion, 84-0, loved by his countrymen for destroying opponents in the ring and not destroying himself outside of it, the way so many of his contemporaries have. The designated Chavez fighter Saturday, Greg Haugen of Las Vegas, a tough, sturdy fighter, but this one never in doubt. At 25 seconds in, Chavez on the left there, knocking down Haugen. He would get up, though, and fight on. Here's the replay once again. Boom. Haugen said he was relaxed, maybe too relaxed. In round 5, Chavez pounding away. When he doesn't like you, he strings you along and punishes you instead of knocking you out quickly. 2:02 of the 5th round. They stop it. He wants to go 100-0 and then retire. His next opponent at 147 pounds could be terrible Terry Norris. Also in Mexico City, Norris defending his WBC welterweight title against IBF champ Maurice Blocker. First round, Norris catching Blocker with the quick left that buckles him and sends him down. Terry Norris is a bad man. Later in the first round, trying to finish him off, Blocker catches one on the block, goes down again, but he's saved by the bell. More of the same in the second round, so Richard Steele stops it wisely 49 seconds into round number 2. Norris wants Chavez. He says he, not Chavez, is pound for pound the greatest fighter in the world. He improves to 33-3 with 20 knockouts. Earlier in the Grand Slam card, super featherweights Azuma Nelson and Gabriel Ruelas, who's Mexican-born. Ruelas on the early attack, but Nelson with the flurry, landing a couple solid rights. Ruelas still waiting in. Nelson lets him come and hits him. Very close competitive fight. Later on, Ruelas throwing a lot of punches, but Nelson avoids them. One judge, the Mexican, scores it even. Two judges give Nelson the narrow decision. He retains his belt. Not popular with the crowd. Michael Nunn facing Irish Dan Morgan, and Irish Dan, go back, get a pint of Guinness, you'll need it. Nunn, with scientific precision, taking Morgan down 2 lefts to the body. TKO, 1 second remaining in the first round.
Of Great Britain is the world heavyweight champion. Tony Tucker of the United States is a former heavyweight champion. Lewis is undefeated. Tucker lost only once to Mike Tyson. Which man will be champion on May 8th? Why, it's as simple as red, white, and blue. Lewis versus Tucker. Heavyweight Championship, Saturday, May 8th. Live on pay-per-view. Call your cable company.
Okay, Lennox Lewis is here, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is. This man will be fighting Tony Tucker May 8th at the Mirage in Las Vegas. I stayed at the Mirage. You'll be very comfortable there. Take some gambling money, though. I'm sorry we ran out of time. What I'd like you to do now is hit me as hard as you can in the forehead. Hey! This is Alan Havey over there, Lennox.
I know.
And can you, at the when you're finished fighting Mr. Tucker, and I think you'll be victorious, come back and see us then?
Definitely.
Or any other time when we have some time to chat.
It wasn't my fault.
No, I know. It was that sissy Tony Randall. Good luck to you, Lennox. Thank you very much. We're out of time, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night, everybody.
Well, Nolan's reputation is the product of 27 Major League seasons. Lennox Lewis was given the WBC belt when Bowe would not sign to fight him. Tomorrow night, Lewis tries to justify that championship against Tony Tucker, whose 1 loss is to Mike Tyson. Moments ago in Las Vegas, the weigh-in not quite as lunatic or surreal as yesterday's press conference, and both fighters coming in. TNT Tony Tucker weighing in at 235 pounds, and following him, the champion, Lennox Lewis, also at 235. He had gone into training at about 220. And so there is the tail of the tape, each at 235, each at 6'5". Tucker is older, which by Sunday morning we will be telling you it's either more experienced or ring-weary. And it'll be the first fight for Lewis since last Halloween and the 3rd for Tucker in that time. A little bit later on in SportsCenter, Charlie Steiner will visit with the young man with an Olympic gold for Canada by way of London's East End.
Is he English? Is he Jamaican? Is he Canadian? Is he champion? Is he legit? Yes, 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 yes. London-born of Jamaican parents, Canadian-raised from age 11, Lennox Lewis beat Bowe for the Olympic gold medal in 1988. The WBC made Lewis heavyweight champ when Bowe refused a mandatory defense against him. Tomorrow, Tony Tucker tries to take the title away. Charlie Steiner, that is, joins us from Las Vegas.
Lennox Lewis is 22-0 with 19 knockouts. Most of his opponents you've never heard of. He is 1/3 the heavyweight champion. He was handed the WBC title 5 months ago. He defends that title for the first time on Saturday night against Tony Tucker. And while Lennox Lewis has had some degree of success in the ring, he's fighting a losing battle on these shores in a battle for identity and credibility.
Now here's the problem with being the other heavyweight champion.
I'm sorry we ran out of time. What I'd like you to do now is hit me as hard as you can in the forehead.
Hey! Lennox Lewis is still a relative unknown to the average American fight fan. His appearance on the Letterman show last week was preempted.
Or any other time when we have some time to chat.
It wasn't my fault.
No, I know. It was that sissy Tony Randall.
I would say they know who I am, but they need to see more of me to really, make it sit heavy with them.
While Lewis will make a little less than $10 million for the Tucker fight, the subplot is his eventual showdown with Bowe, probably sometime next spring.
if I don't get past Tony Tucker, you know, there is no matchup with Bowe.
These are the instruments of war with which he has won each of his 22 prize fights. As Lewis prepares for Tony Tucker, his regimen includes this. Pepe Correa, who worked Sugar Ray Leonard's corner, is Lewis's trainer now. Correa's top priority has been to work on Lewis's occasionally clumsy footwork.
Come a long ways from that robotic state that his previous trainer had put him into. 15 seconds. We were working on patience, being patient, being able to stay behind a good left jab. Good movement. Time!
Lewis is an overwhelming favorite. Tony Tucker is theoretically a mandatory WBC title defense. Realistically, he should be nothing more than a hefty payday. The 33-year-old Tucker's career has been detoured over the years by injuries, managerial, and drug problems. But Tony Tucker is 48-1. He's no slouch, or at least in his heyday, he wasn't. Lewis would prefer to fight Riddick Bowe in the fall of this year, instead of the spring of next.
But on the other hand, it could be another $20 or $25 million.
Yeah, well, that's money. I'm in there for the fame.
Come on now.
The money's gonna always be there. Money will always be there. If you're the best, you're gonna get paid according to what you know, how good you are.
Lewis received some attention with his second-round knockout of Razor-Ruddock last Halloween in London. But until he beats Riddick Bowe, he'll be the other heavyweight champ.
In your own mind, who's the heavyweight champion of the world?
I am.
Why?
Because of the fact of, you know, I'm willing to box the best out there, whoever the #1 challenger is. I'm not ducking anybody. Riddick Bowe is ducking me. They remind me of WWF wrestling promoters, you know, always blowing off steam and saying nothing.
Do you like Bowe?
I don't hate him.
You like him?
He's all right.
But Lennox Lewis can't preoccupy himself with Bowe or allow himself the luxury of thinking that Tony Tucker is merely a paycheck.
1 minute.
This, after all, is Lennox Lewis's first title defense, no matter how questionable his belt might be.
Baby, good stuff, good stuff.
Lennox Lewis, a 4.5-to-1 favorite to take out Tony Tucker on Saturday night, and not exactly on a date. Julio Cesar Chavez and Terrence Ali in one of the undercard fights, and perhaps one of the real good fights of the early part of 1993, Julian Jackson and Gerald McClellan, also on the undercard on Saturday night. By the way, join us here on ESPN immediately after the fight. Al Bernstein will be joining me for highlights, analysis, and interviews. Lennox Lewis and Tony Tucker on Saturday night here on ESPN. For now, Charlie Steiner in Las Vegas, sending it back to SportsCenter.
Welcome back. We can only wonder why the Star Spangled Glory boxing lineup isn't being held on the 4th of July rather than Saturday night. As you ponder that, let's bring in Charlie Steiner from Las Vegas to fill you in on weigh-in day as WBC heavyweight champ Lennox Lewis gets ready to face Tony Tucker in his first title defense.
Linda, as usual, the weigh-ins for these championship fights are a microcosm of the sport of boxing itself. Organized chaos. Tony Tucker got on the scales first on Friday afternoon, weighing in at 235 pounds. And you wonder why they call him Tony TNT Tucker? Lennox Lewis, next to step on the scales, the champion, the WBC version, weighed in at 235 pounds, 7 pounds heavier than he was for the Razor-Ruddock fight back on Halloween night in London. Tail of the tape, the numbers are virtually the same. The only significant difference, perhaps, the age. Tucker is 33, Lewis is 27. We talk with both fighters after the weigh-in. Lennox, 235 pounds. Are you happy with your weight?
Very happy. This is the weight that I predicted when I was in training camp, and I feel really good about it because that's my natural dancing weight.
You were 7 pounds lighter for the Ruddock fight. What is the difference in going in a bit heavier this time?
I've just gotten bigger. I'm still growing. And I feel good. That weight's a good weight for me.
How important is this fight tomorrow night?
It means everything to me. It means everything to me. It's a blessing. I'm glad to be here. I'm in great shape. I'm ready to destroy Lennox Lewis.
So essentially, it is a statistical dead heat for Saturday night's WBC Heavyweight Championship fight. The outcome we will have for you on SportsCenter at 11:30 Eastern Time. Al Bernstein will be joining me for highlights, analysis, and post-fight interviews. For now, Charlie Steiner, ESPN at the Mirage in Las Vegas, sending it back to SportsCenter.
Thanks, Charlie. How about TNT, Tucker?
Given something, and now he hopes to take it out on Tony Tucker tomorrow night in Las Vegas. Lewis making his first defense as WBC heavyweight champion, a title given him when Riddick Bowe threw the belt in a trash can. The weigh-in today looked like a last pair of underwear before doing laundry day. Lewis, 6'5", 235, the exact dimensions of his opponent. TNT Tucker, 33, 6 years older than Lewis. A seasoned fighter, though, with at least the size to cope with Lewis. It's all about a little thing called respect, and Lewis hopes to earn it, as Nick Charles reports.
Lennox Lewis owns 33 1/3% of the heavyweight championship. He got his piece of the belt when Riddick Bowe literally trashed it. Lewis has never lost a fight, but being anointed champion by decree did nothing for his credibility. What did wonders, though, was this laser beam right hand 6 months ago that put Razor-Ruddock's lights out in the second round.
I don't like being part owner of heavyweight championship. My goal is to be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, and basically I'm just waiting until Riddick Bowe gets his guts up and, you know, wants to face Lennox Lewis.
But Tony Tucker's the man Lewis has to deal with Saturday night in Las Vegas. Tucker's got size and experience. He beat Buster Douglas for the IBF championship 5 years ago. 2 months later, Tucker was ex-champion, losing but lasting the full dozen rounds to Mike Tyson while fighting with a hand broken in 3 places. He's a 33-year-old guy who peaked 5 years ago, so he's a 4-to-1 underdog Saturday night who can afford to take chances.
I don't feel any pressure at all. I mean, I have a record 51-1, you know. I don't even look beyond that. You know, I don't look beyond losing or if this was to happen. I can't even focus on that. Don't even compute in my mind. What's computed in my mind is winning this title, going there and kicking ass.
Some people say because Tucker took 2 years off after the Tyson loss and has done nothing but win since then, he's hardly a sure thing, but rather a dangerous first title defense for Lewis.
You have to look at this guy's record. He's got more knockouts than I have wins. And the layoff, all he was doing is putting himself on the shelf because he wasn't being knocked around. He was on layaway, as it goes. And now is his time to redeem himself.
We can only speculate whether Lewis is selling tickets or being truly cautious. But both he and Tucker agree on 2 things. This fight will be short and sweet.
I don't really get paid for overtime. I want to get in there and get out of there as soon as possible. You know, if an opportunity presents itself, I'll take full advantage of it.
It's like a rattlesnake, 2 rattlesnakes. The first one bites, the second one dies. That's where it is. When the first time I get it, it's the first chance I get to get him out of there, I'm getting him out of there. I ain't wasting no time. I don't want nobody to see no commercials.
He's ready to bite. Nick Charles will be on hand in Las Vegas and provide complete interviews and analysis here on CNN right after.
The WBC champ defending his title for the first time, taking on Tony Tucker. It sounds weird because it is weird, but then that's boxing, so accept it. Lewis never actually won the WBC heavyweight title. It was handed to him when Riddick Bowe refused to fight Lewis last year. Just how good is Lennox Lewis? Well, it's tough to say, but we do know this. Don King thought that he was overrated, and that's why he put $168,000 on his man, Tony Tucker, before tonight's fight. If he won, King said it would be a magnanimous gesture for those less fortunate. Was it money well spent? Well, right now the fight is still going on in the 8th round. This was a monster fight card. Earlier, Julio Cesar Chavez took on Terrence Ali in the 5th round. He hurt Ali with the 2 lefts across the chin, catching him off guard. Up against the ropes, Chavez wins a TKO in the 6th round, retaining his WBC super lightweight title. He's 87-0. Julian Jackson in white defending his WBC middleweight title against Gerald McClellan in the 1st round. McClellan tagging Jackson. The replay, and you see why McClellan won the 5th round TKO, a knockout rather, taking the WBC middleweight title from Julian Jackson. Now other results. Former 2-time world champ Meldrick Taylor stopped Henry Hughes after a couple of rounds, and former 2-time world champ Hector Camacho stopped Eric Podolak in the 5th round.
And just an update on the Lewis-Tucker bout. They're in the 9th round, and Lennox Lewis has already knocked down Tony Tucker twice. And, of course, we will update you on that big bout.
Welcome back to the show. As we mentioned a moment ago, it is all over in Las Vegas. The WBC heavyweight title fight between the champion, Lennox Lewis, and the challenger, Tony TNT Tucker. As I mentioned, there were 2 knockdowns in this fight, and you're about to see them right now as we roll the highlights. We pick it up in the 3rd round. Lewis in the orange, Tucker in the white, hitting the canvas. Tucker gets up in plenty of time. He says, I'm fine, let's go. We move to the 8th round. Tucker unloading on Lewis, but Lewis is undaunted, fights back. Tucker now looking ready to go down, but he would not. He would survive the 8th round. In fact, he would survive this fight despite 2 knockdowns. The fight went the distance. The 2nd knockdown in the fight took place in the 9th round, and you're about to see it coming up. As I mentioned, here's the end of the 8th round as Tucker took some punishment, but again, did not go down. It wouldn't make any difference in the long run, however, as we move to the 9th round, and here comes the 2nd knockdown in the fight. And this could have been the clincher, as Lennox Lewis retains his WBC heavyweight title. It was a unanimous decision. The scoring went 118-111, 117-111, 116-112. Lennox Lewis, a unanimous decision, retaining his title, moving to 23-0. Tony Tucker suffering the only 2 knockdowns of his professional career, losing, falling to 48-2. We will hear from Charlie Steiner coming up on the 11 o'clock Pacific time edition of SportsCenter. He'll have a complete wrap-up of the WBC heavyweight title fight. Linda?
It was all about respect. Lennox Lewis trying to earn some in his first WBC title defense. Let's go there now. Join Charlie Steiner and Al Bernstein.
Here at the Thomas and Mack Center on Saturday night, Lennox Lewis, the WBC heavyweight champion, title that he was handed just 5 months ago, wanted to have an impressive performance to enhance his marketability in the 50 states. Well, he won the fight all right, but I'm not sure he enhanced his marketability. It was a unanimous decision. Al Bernstein joins me now. What was your assessment? This is not the kind of aura-building performance I think he wanted.
It really wasn't, despite the fact that he knocked Tony Tucker down, the first man to do that, which is something even Mike Tyson couldn't do. But this was a different Tony Tucker. Lennox Lewis looked like a one-dimensional fighter tonight. More than anything, I think that's the thing that people will take away from this match. He's a big guy. He's powerful. He can hurt you with the right hand. But unfortunately, Charlie, he really did not show too much more, and I think he wanted to show more.
Indeed. It was the overhand right in the 3rd round, the very same punch which knocked out Razor-Ruddock back on October 31st in London, which put Tucker down for the first time in his career.
Yeah, and in some respects, this knockdown might have hurt him more, Lennox Lewis, because then he got away from some of the things he was supposed to do. And when Tony Tucker was able to back him up, as he did in the 8th round, Lennox Lewis showed another chink in his armor. He stops punching and he takes punches.
At the end of the 8th round, Tony Tucker was staggered. He was on clear streak, thankfully almost saved by the bell. Early in the 9th round, however, Lennox Lewis continued his pursuit and knocked down Tony Tucker for the 2nd time of the night and his career.
And this time that Tucker was really hurt badly, and it was amazing in a way that Tucker was able to come back.
So when all was said and done, it was a unanimous decision, a decisive, one-sided unanimous decision for Lennox Lewis. As decided as it was with the numbers, it was not that impressive a win. The numbers really don't tell the entire story. We talked to both fighters afterwards.
No, I'm pretty happy, but, you know, there's always room for improvement. I think the main thing is that I have to give enough respect to Tony Tucker because he can take a hell of a punch. I was surprised that he stayed on his feet. You know, he showed a lot of guts and determination.
I can't make no excuses. I should have won the fight, but I lost it. It's my 2nd loss, you know, but I'm going to take it like a man, and, you know, that's what happens sometimes, you know. He was a better man today.
I'm telling everybody in the world, you know, if that was Riddick Bowe, he would have been on the ground because Riddick Bowe has no guts, and he would never have got up from a punch like that.
Okay, I'll give us an early handicap on a Riddick Bowe Lennox Lewis fight that we expect to take place about a year from now.
Well, based upon what we saw here tonight, certainly Riddick Bowe would probably be installed a favorite at this point. Lennox Lewis showed some deficiencies that Bowe could take advantage of if, in fact, Bowe doesn't walk into a right hand and get hurt. But at this point, Bowe would definitely be the favorite.
Also tonight, we saw Julio Cesar Chavez improve his record to 87-0. With a TKO in the 6th round over an old friend, Terrence Ali.
And Chavez showed power in the 6th, knocked him out, got the TKO after Ali had a gutty performance.
And the new WBC middleweight champion is Gerald McClellan, a 5th round knockout of Julian Jackson. So some final thoughts on this Saturday night of fighting in Las Vegas.
Well, as you said, it was not the kind of performance Lennox Lewis wanted. He tried to put his own spin on it and say it wasn't quite really disappointing. And the spin doctors will be at work overtime in the next couple of weeks, including Rock Newman over there with Riddick Bowe. But I think it was not the kind of performance Lewis wanted. And right now, it diminishes a little bit the Lewis-Bowe fight.
And our next stop will be Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks when Riddick Bowe defends his title against Jesse Ferguson. For now, from Las Vegas, for Al Bernstein, Charlie Steiner, sending it back to SportsCenter.
Before a heavyweight championship fight ends and the champ previously committed to the boxing some comparative stiffs afterwards is suddenly talking instead about fighting the big names. Lennox Lewis signed to fight Frank Bruno on September 18th, interviewing with ESPN Sunday morning, refusing to deny reports that he might first fight Evander Holyfield. We now have an offer from a casino to come back here in September, says Lewis's manager Frank Maloney about Las Vegas. Slots are craps, Frank.
He at times has seemed Teflon with the damage sliding from his shoulders and landing around him. His wife, manager, and trainer taking the brunt of criticism. But a new book on Tyson written by former friend Jose Torres could change all that. Tyson is quoted as saying, "I like to hurt women when I make love to them, hear them scream in pain and bleed." Adding the best punch he ever threw was at former wife Robin Givens. She flew backwards, hitting every wall in the apartment. Torres, a former light heavyweight champ, was once a member of the Tyson camp, and this is an unauthorized biography of Mike Tyson.
Well, I think that speaks for itself.
Atlantic City. Mike Tyson stopped Carl "The Truth" Williams at 93 seconds of the first round to retain his heavyweight boxing title. Williams got knocked down with a huge left hand that came out of nowhere, got up at the count of 7, and seemed ready to continue. However, referee Randy Newman saw the truth in Carl's eyes, maybe. Here are the final seconds of the bout as CBC saw it.
But Tyson, very, very tough. 5 minutes in the party. People do not give Mike Tyson enough credit for his quickness in there and where he hit you.
The referee had a closer view than I did, so I guess he called the shot right. But I thought he was going to get up because it was a good shot. But I don't know. I don't think it was that hard.
I wasn't hurt to the point where I couldn't continue. I wasn't even hurt to the point where I was on Queer Street, so to speak. I wasn't moving around. I wasn't wiggling. I wasn't falling down.
There's nobody that can beat me. There's nobody that can beat me.
Oh, he's got that right, I think. Here's another look at the punch that ended it. Tyson bringing that left hand out of the ground somewhere, and Williams goes crashing to the canvas. One punch says it all. Williams said later, "Yeah, I was stunned, but I wasn't on Queer Street." And those are his words. Referee Newman thought otherwise. He's asking him, "Hey, are you okay? You all right, Carl?" Williams couldn't answer, and Newman said the fighter's hands were dead at his side. It was a TKO, the 5th knockout, the 5th fastest knockout in heavyweight championship history. Mike Tyson wins his 10th championship.
Tyson's promoter Don King says the heavyweight champion will make his next 2 title defenses against Canadian Razor-Ruddock and Buster Douglas of Columbus, Ohio, probably in that order, and possibly in October, then December. The easy assumption being Tyson gets by the first guy. Ruddock, though, is the more interesting fighter based on his recent win over Bone Grabber Smith, while Douglas had the crowd yelling "No Mas" in his last rumble. And the cold Canadian weather is simply no sweat.
Coming in here, you get a little fatigued because it changes the climate. That's how I like it. I like it with the fight. You come in here, you fight. So when you get in the ring, you have no habit. You know you're in the fight.
Tyson's closing his workouts the next few days, but will likely go public because promoters in Edmonton say just about half the 18,000 seats have been sold for the fight. Originally expected to see tonight would have been in Edmonton, Canada, between Mike Tyson and Razor-Ruddock. Let's look back now at how that fight was postponed and the details of this latest passage in the curious life of the heavyweight champ, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's 93-second disposal of Carl Williams marked a bittersweet ending to his ninth successful title defense. To put it bluntly, Tyson's fights haven't lasted long enough to satisfy Las Vegas and Atlantic City casinos, who are now hesitant about dishing out multi-million-dollar site fees to Don King for the right to host Tyson's quick execution. Mike's cameo appearances in the ring had yet to worry his promoter. King's solution is to take the Mike Tyson show on the road to foreign countries willing to pay the big bucks to watch the heavyweight champion. Tyson's first stop was to have been this evening in Edmonton, Canada, where local promoters had put up $3.5 million to host what they were calling the Cold War between Mike and Jamaican-born, Toronto-raised challenger Donovan Razor-Ruddock. As usual, Tyson arrived in Edmonton 4 weeks early to train and acclimatize himself to new surroundings. But on the very first day of training, there were indications the fight was in trouble.
The sluggish feeling you're feeling right now is only from traveling. It'll leave you. That's why you're here at once, to get that out there. That's why you're feeling like that. I have a flight. I'm cold. I'm cold out. I've had a rough week.
Are you going to try and maybe hit some of the night spots in town?
No.
A second smoke signal went up when the champ, having looked lethargic, having complained of illness during his workouts, missed 4 days of training. King flew in Tyson's personal physician from Las Vegas. And then, on a Wednesday, a news conference was held, and the Cold War in Edmonton was temporarily put on ice.
Mr. Tyson is and has been bothered by a condition known as costochondritis. It's a pleuritic chest pain. Because of that condition, it will be impossible for him to fight November 18th and for us to hold the fight card.
The lining of the lung on the inside gets an inflammatory process in it, and anytime you breathe or you take a deep breath, it causes you to have the pain. And for somebody, in his condition to be able to go and spar or fight, and we don't want him to get hit on the ribs or any of that sort. But in the meantime, he cannot jog, he cannot run, he cannot spar, so there is no way we're going to allow him just to do that.
Co-promoter Ed Bean had put up the money to host the fight. The cancellation took him by surprise.
This thing come on so quickly, we're going to have to sit down, we're going to look at our contract again, we're going to have to study it, and then we're going to have to negotiate and talk with Mike, or with Don King.
All I can tell you categorically is that we want to fight, and we want to fight in Edmonton, and we want to fight Razor-Ruddock if he's still around.
And there's no question in Ruddock's mind that he will be around. He's accepted the cancellation and says he will use the extra time to better prepare himself.
I'm looking forward to the fight. I have no animosity against him. I'm a athlete. I'm a gladiator, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. But in this term, they're thinking about a lot of money, and they have to take every precaution necessary. So it's hard for me to judge them and say that, well, whatever they're doing is wrong or whatever, because maybe if I was in his shoes and I'm talking about millions of dollars, I'd probably do the same thing. So it's hard for me to judge him. I just want the fight to go on, and that's it.
Tap again. Tap again.
The Tyson and King entourage wasted little time blowing out of Edmonton on a flight back to the States, where Tyson claimed he'd be resting. But what would a Tyson fight or non-fight be without greater controversy? Recently, some reporters have questioned the severity of Tyson's malady after having spotted the champ in a favorite Broadway nightclub at 2:30 in the morning. And so the Tyson saga continues. And now this week, developments have put the picture in focus. Promoters in Edmonton unable to come up with the money to finalize the deal, so the next fight for Tyson in Tokyo, Japan at Korakuen Stadium against James Buster Douglas of Ohio, a large but relatively light-hitting heavyweight. That bout would take place on February 12 as the 10th title defense for the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, who joins us now live right here at ringside in Las Vegas as we come back with a chance to talk to Mike Tyson. First of all, Mike, your health. How is the pleurisy condition which caused you to cancel the bout in Canada?
Well, in my opinion, it was never really that bad to cancel the fight. But my physician came up, and I had this slight pain while I was breathing, and it made me uncomfortable. I'm sure if I would have just perhaps trained around 2 more weeks or so, I felt good to fight. You know, I don't believe in canceling a fight because you don't feel. I feel regardless of the situation, the show must go on. So, you know what I mean? I respect my physician, Mr. Elias Ganem, and he said it really wasn't worth it, so we canceled the fight.
You feel bad for Ruddock?
Hey, you know, I wasn't worried about anyone beating me and taking my title, but I mean...
You were here tonight as a fight fan, Mike. Just give us your impressions of Chavez and your impressions of Chavez when he fights Taylor.
I'm looking for a spectacular fight. There's by no doubt there'll be a war. And I mean, from this last performance, Chavez is always a business-like, calm, collect killer. You know what I mean? But I've seen him get hit a few times, punches that's very, you know what I mean, it's unnecessary to be hit with by a fighter that's not of a high caliber of a military tailor. And just a matter of fact, because fighting is all in the mind, I believe, you know, it's all mental. And if you go in and have a totally different frame of mind against Taylor, anything can happen. But Taylor, I say, I give him a good chance.
Okay, speaking about other fights besides your own, did you see the Holyfield-Stewart fight? And if you did, your impression of Holyfield?
Well, it's tough. He was in there with a guy that was up for the occasion, and it's hard to fight well against a guy that's in there, and he's totally up for that fight. He's up particularly for you. He dreams about you, he thinks about you, he's nervous, and that's all he thinks about. And he was up for the fight. He was hurt a couple of times, but he refused to go down because, like I said before, the heat of the moment, the adrenaline's pumping, and he wanted to give a good account of himself, and he came to win.
Which brings us to the obvious question. You're fighting Buster Douglas in Tokyo on February 12th. You know that the real public interest is not in a Buster Douglas fight, but when are you going to fight Evander Holyfield? Printed reports this week suggest it'll happen in June. Will it?
Well, I don't know anything about the fight, but like I said before, I'm not worried by no means of anybody taking the title. So whatever it is, I mean,
if you were in shape, you'd fight him tomorrow.
By all means.
We know you're not concerned about the opponent. How do you regard Holyfield in relation to other heavyweights you've fought? I mean, he seems to fight with a champion's heart.
Well, like I say, I'm watching him fight. I'm a Holyfield fan just from watching him because I enjoy watching him fight. He's an exciting fighter, and he punches in good combinations, and he shows, as you said, the determination and the will of the champion. And I always look forward to matching my skills with his. So, like, as everything else, by all means, he's a good fighter. I may even see an outstanding fighter.
When are you going to training for Tokyo, Mike?
Well, I'm training now.
All right. Thanks very much for your time. Best of luck to you. We will see you again February 12th. Korakuen Stadium, the Big Egg in Tokyo, Japan.
Yeah.
So the heavyweight champion makes his way back to an adoring public, which has mobbed us here. And
known as boxing news. What else? The WBC, that's the World Boxing Council to you and me, wants heavyweight champ Evander Holyfield to fight Mike Tyson as his first title defense. But Holyfield, you see, as we all know, is going to fight George Foreman in April. So the WBC is going to arbitration to try and force Holyfield to see things their way. If the WBC wins the arbitration and Holyfield fights Foreman instead of Tyson, then he would be stripped of the WBC title. If that is the case, the WBC belt would go to the winner of the Tyson-Ruddock fight March 18th.
I'm never going to use her name because they said don't, and I'm never going to do it. She would not be seen as this God-fearing, pristine lady. She would be seen in a different light.
We'll get to the different light in a moment. That was more of an answer than I anticipated.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's allowed. And either way, Tony, your feelings.
Well, just to address a couple of things that Ralph said, I would disagree, and we'll be disagreeing, I'm sure, throughout this whole segment. I don't think that if the reverse were true with William Kennedy Smith and Mike Tyson, that the verdicts, you know, would change that much. I think in the Mike Tyson case, different from William Kennedy Smith, different from Clarence Thomas, different from Isaiah Leggett, a case Ralph is familiar with in the Washington, D.C. area, of an elected official being accused of sexual harassment, that the victim in the Mike Tyson case was an 18-year-old girl. And I think you cannot discount that with a jury. The other women involved in this variety of cases were 30 and 35 and 40 years old. I think that had a lot to do with it.
Bill Roden.
See, I agree. You know, she says that there's a sickness, and it's true. There's been a lot of debate in the last 3 weeks about did he do it, did she do it? And one of the things that disturbs me, now we've got the Baptist ministers passing a thing, there is a sickness, and the sickness, and nobody really wants to talk about it, is this whole notion of black male-female relationships. There's a black male sexism. There's a very basic issue about respect, respecting your women, respecting black women,
And that, to me, is an undebatable principle. In terms of the law, yeah, I mean, the Prison Project just came out with a study last week and said the United States is the greatest jailer of black males in the world, even greater than South Africa. So yes, before we have the discussion, yes, it is a racist judicial system, but I think that one of the things that hopefully this dialogue will create among particularly black males and black females is that there's an issue of sexism, there's an issue of disrespect. And it doesn't matter whether it's in Indianapolis or whether it's in Florida. And I think you could debate around the issue. But that, to me, is one of the more important points about all this.
Now, that's an issue, obviously, which is very hard for someone who is white to bring up. Because one thing, you don't sense it as well, don't understand it as well as you. Do you find Bill's point valid, or?
Oh, well, certainly, but that's not the issue that I'm trying to confront. The issue I'm trying to confront is the way people are portrayed in the media. And I am a creature of the media myself. I understand how it works. Mike Tyson is seen and was portrayed. He was convicted when he walked into the courtroom. Various media organizations, we know he did it. We know he's this bestial. And people are even talking about his defense team. And Tony's going to have something to say about that, about how they blew it. But see, Clarence Darrow and Oliver Wendell Holmes wouldn't have been able to get Tyson off from this particular charge. Tyson is seen as a beast. Why?
Oh, yes, well,
Jose Torres says, well, Mike told me he hit Robin Givens with the best punch he ever threw. Apparently, he did not hit her hard enough to knock her off the cover of Life magazine or out of the stores on Rodeo Drive. I mean, I never saw her marked. William Kennedy Smith is seen as a medical student. Now, there are 3 women in Washington, D.C., white women, who say, yeah, the guy knocked me over in the bushes and did the same thing to me. Now, they were barred from testifying in the Florida trial. Now, who is the sick person here? Mike Tyson for running around feeling on some behinds, which everybody in Italy would have to be put in jail if that was the case. Or somebody who there's witnesses that say, I was attacked.
Go back to the defense thing for a second. Why would the defense, if I'm sitting on a jury and the defense presents Mike Tyson as this sexual leering monster and says, let the shopper beware, if you go near him, it's your fault, isn't it very easy for me on the jury to say, well, if he can be that, of course he could have raped this woman? I mean, why would they even come up with a defense like this? That's not the media, Ralph. That was his lawyers.
Well, I think they were responding. See, that was already there. That was immutable. His image was immutable. How are we going to change his image in a 2-week trial when it's been built up over 5 years?
I don't think he was convicted in the past. I honestly thought that he, like the other people involved, would be acquitted in this case.
He indeed may have been guilty. You know, and that's a tough one. I mean, he was found guilty, so he's guilty. But my point is, these 5 Washington Capitals hockey players, 5-on-1, these 3 St. John students, 3-on-1, William Kennedy Smith 1-on-1, and they walk. They walk, Tony, and that's
the recent history of the country.
That gets into the, there are 2 issues
and
here.
Those were black women, Bill.
Right.
So white men have to respect black women as well as black men. I don't want to say, well, I'll go to jail. You'll go to jail if you're a black man and you rape a white woman, but if you're a white man and you rape a white woman, as always.
Well, the Capitals case was not a white woman, and it was not brought.
Right.
They didn't have enough to indict, and a lot of people are saying that William Kennedy Smith, as it turns out, there was not even enough truly to indict. They did not have a strong case in that situation.
There's one thing I just want to, when you talk about this perception, this image of Tyson, the reason behind it, why does he have that image? Why, is it because he's black? Is it because he's a fighter? Or is it because he's Mike Tyson?
All those things. I mean, I'm not here to say Mike Tyson is, you know, the most well-adjusted person on earth, because he certainly isn't. But how did he become the world's heavyweight champion? By being dangerous. I don't know.
But he promoted this image himself.
He did, because that's what people wanted. Give it to us. Give it to us. And he gave it to him.
But he's had a series of, to be charitable, bizarre incidents in the past 4 or 5 years.
But, you know, there's another thing, and we keep getting into the idea. I'm sort of dealing with respect. You're dealing with judicial, and I think there's an element of truth in both ways. But one of the things about these debates that are going through, about 2 years ago, and this is sort of disturbs me about the politics of things. A couple years ago, a woman named Tawana Brawley was raped, claimed she was raped. Some of the same people who defended Tawana Brawley, talked about black womanhood and respect and that whole thing, are now 360 degrees other ways talking about taking Tyson's side, talking about some were saying that she's lying, and that bothers me.
And she's asking for it.
She's asking for it. But 2 years ago, the same people politically were saying that it's the system and the sister was being mistreated. And I'm saying that you're either dealing with the honor and respect of black womanhood or you're not. So I mean, and that's the politics.
Here's a point on that, though. You always knew Tawana Brawley's name. You always knew her name from Jump Street. I mean, there's this whole thing about you can't know this woman's name until later, and she says, well, it's fine if you know my name. And my point is, if William Kennedy Smith is charged with raping her, she is not portrayed as this God-fearing, wonderful girl. She's portrayed as a woman who wore a short dress into a man's hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning. And if you don't know that that's the truth, then you don't understand how you're being manipulated.
We have to stay, because we could go on for a long. I think you're expecting consistency, and you're not exactly expecting justice, and we're going to have difficulty getting both of them. We'll take a break.
It didn't take long for Mike Tyson to go from the people's champion to the lost champion.
And by no means am I sinless, but it's some things are just absurd.
Welcome to the best of our Sunday night conversations. I'm Dan Patrick. We started bringing you these athletes up close and personal back in 1986, and our subjects have ranged from Nicholas to Palmer, Bird to Magic, Ali to Tyson. Over 300 conversations in all, over 20,000 minutes of tape to sift through, searching for what we felt were the most informative and insightful responses. Our goal is to bring you the timely interview, which brings us to our first conversation. We have done 5 lengthy interviews with Mike Tyson, and each has revealed a different side to the man. In 1986, Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion ever with this knockout of Trevor Berbick. His career hit an all-time high with this 91-second devastation of Michael Spinks. He seemed invincible, on top of the world, but Tyson's downfall accelerated out of the ring, starting with his marriage to Robin Givens. There were the late-night brawls on the streets of New York City, a car accident that was rumored a suicide, and what may be his final downfall on February 10th, an Indiana jury returned a guilty verdict on rape charges. But the saga of Mike Tyson began in the mean streets of Brownsville, New York. His teenage years were spent in the serenity of the Catskills. In his 25 years, Mike Tyson has lived on both sides of the track. In October of 1991, just after the grand jury indicted Tyson, Charlie Steiner sat down with Tyson and his promoter, Don King. In an interview that lasted nearly 2 hours, Tyson told Charlie about his influences in his life.
What used to bother me when I was younger, people used to take things from me. I used to wear glasses, and this guy, I don't believe the guy, he took the milk, and you always had milk when he took the milk, and he took my glasses. And I wanted to get my glasses, but I was scared to fight the guy for some reason, because he talked tough. But something that he did, it was so cruel, and I was devastated. But he took my glasses, folded them up. It was a big truck, I think it was a lunch truck. He took the gas tank, opened, and put my glasses in the gas. Dropped them in the way he pumped together and put them down there, turned back, and I had nowhere else to get my glasses. And at that time, I couldn't believe someone could be that cruel to do that. I just couldn't believe that he did that. I didn't even cry, I was just shocked that he did that. Because normally somebody would play with your stuff and just give it to you and then kick you in the butt when you turn around and get out of here. But he did that, I knew I wasn't gonna get my glasses back. And I had to go home and had to get it from my mother.
And were you and your mom real tight?
Yeah, we were pretty good friends. We became friends in our later years.
But when you were running around being a bad guy, what was it like at home with you and your mom? Was that a hard time?
She was embarrassed because my mother was an absolute good woman. She was just that's her nature, a good woman. She was good. She didn't believe. She never stole a loaf of bread in her life, and she just was upset when I come in with money, new clothes, and she knew no one gave me clothes. I make up excuses. This happened. And just one day I gave her a bunch of money to her mom. Don't even ask me where I got it from. Just take it and buy something. But she was so hurt that I would go that way. She was just embarrassed. She was embarrassed I was that way.
Thank you.
Read something in the paper this morning which kind of struck me based on all of the conversations you and I have had over the years. And you're quoted as saying,
things are going to have to change. I just can't be the basic, typical guy, I mean, saying hi to people. I guess I'm going to have to start saying, no, you can't hang out with me, you can't get autographs. How difficult a transition has it, or is it for you, to withdraw and have to take a step
Charlie,
back?
it's something that has to occur. It's something that has to happen because majority of people, you know, I mean, they take advantage of the fact that that's my aura of just a basic guy. And, you know, I mean, it's hard for me to change because that's what I always wanted to be. I was a normal guy, but I just can't allow people to take cheap shots, you know what I mean, trying to assassinate my character, lie. And by no means am I sinless, but it's just, some things are just absurd. Some of the things you hear, and it's just ludicrous, perverted, and it's just sometimes that you can't even believe it.
You once told me it really wasn't hard being famous, because at that point in your life, things were going really, really well. Now, are you finding the difficulty of fame?
Yeah, you know, it's very funny that we said it because I used to think about people. I said, why do you got a lot of guys and stuff around them? Why do certain people have, you know, bodyguards? I never could understand because I never thought that anyone wanted to hurt them or do anything to them because I thought people just respect them and love them too much. But, you know, it's the reason for that, you know, and they used to always tell me, why are you hanging out alone? What are you doing here alone? I said, I'm just hanging out. I just came to see you.
Are there times you want to just kind of trade it all in and just be old Mike again? Is it still worth it?
No, I don't think because I am old Mike. It's just that I am who I am because I didn't enjoy being that way. I didn't enjoy being the way people harass, the way people disrespect you, didn't have show any respect for you. They only respect money and power and influence, and they didn't respect the the majority of the people again. I'm not saying everybody just didn't respect the average guy that just wanted to be happy and have, you know, be friends with everyone.
Tyson's life will soon change forever. He is scheduled for sentencing on March 26th in Judge Patricia Gifford's courtroom in Indianapolis. And for the first time since he was incarcerated at the age of 12, Tyson will be all alone. No Cus D'Amato, no Robin Gibbons, and no Don King.
More than $10 million to stage the new champ's first title defense. Holyfield will fight George Foreman next April, but the WBC is threatening to strip him of his newly won title, at least their share of it, if he doesn't make Mike Tyson his first defense.
Tonight's edition of In This Corner is being brought to you by Co-Advil, advanced formula for cold and sinus relief. When Evander Holyfield knocked out Buster Douglas, it was one of the greatest knockouts in George Foreman's career. They laughed at him during his comeback, but George Foreman will have the last laugh when he picks up $12 million in his fight with Evander Holyfield coming up scheduled for April. Meanwhile, Sean, George Foreman has taken his show on the road here tonight in Birmingham, fought an exhibition, 3 one-minute rounds against a heavyweight by the name of Sim Warrior. Why don't we just go into the ring? That, of course, is George in the white.
Al, there is no greater feeling than performing in front of an audience, and Big George likes to perform in front of fans. He fought an exhibition earlier, last month in October. He's fighting an exhibition in Tulsa on the 19th of this month. He likes, and he's fighting an exhibition here. He likes the response, the immediate response from a live crowd. And that is what he got in this sparring match with Sim Warrior.
Physically, what is George accomplishing here?
Well, physically, he's getting his balance down. He's feeling out where he is inside the ropes and in front of a crowd.
George, we enjoyed that 3-round exhibition. As a matter of fact, it's the longest we've seen you in the ring here on USA.
Well, I'd like to tell you, I'm at home with my Birmingham friends right here.
Cue the crowd. They are, when you were in the ring, as a matter of fact, they were offering you cheeseburgers. You will become the cheeseburger champion.
That's right. I'm going to knock Evander Holyfield out in 2 rounds. In between rounds, we're going to stop and have cheeseburgers.
George, you fought exhibitions. You've got 3 of them now. You're supposed to fight perhaps in December in London. Are you risking a big fight?
I think maybe they won't be any more fights. I'll just do exhibitions. I want to get around the country and let everybody see me firsthand. They've heard by the press how I look. I want them to see me firsthand. I don't want them to hear but see me. Because the fight is not going to go but 2 rounds with Evander Holyfield. They're going to pay all that money. I'm going to do exhibitions around the country so they can see me.
George, a story out of New York, the New York Post, Michael Marley, about the possibility that Holyfield will be stripped of the title by the WBC, perhaps even with the WBA. What are your thoughts about this story?
Well, it's a strange thing. I've had a chance to speak with Mr. Suleiman. His career started at about the same time I did. He want to do what's just and what's right. So I do believe once he's spoken with by both of us, we know that we want the recognition. I want to be recognized by the WBC. I want that belt when I win. He knows that, so I think everything's going to be happy. Nobody's going to be stripped.
If it is, you would still go ahead with the fight under the IBF regulations.
It's not going to happen. He's going to sanction the fight. He's already assured me it's going to be a worldwide, undisputed heavyweight championship fight. Nothing's bad is going to happen. The only thing bad is going to happen to Evander Holyfield is my right hand.
Well, we have on the line live from Virginia the colorful trainer of Evander Holyfield, Lou Duva. Lou, you heard what George said. What's your reaction to the word that Evander may be stripped of the title?
Wait a minute, I'm eating a cheeseburger right now. Ask that question again. Hello?
Did you need some ketchup?
Yes, I needed it. I think that George is a colorful figure. I think he deserves his shot. I think he's entitled to the shot, and it'll be his last shot. I think it's going to be a great fight between 2 great warriors out there. To me, George is a phenomenon. I think he deserves his shot. Nobody's going to tell me different, not even Don King, who's trying to break up the match. As far as I'm concerned, all I want George to do is to show up that night, and we'll take care of their business.
I'm going to hit Evander Holyfield so hard he's going to think your and my birth certificate hit him.
Is that right? Jesus,
he's going to be hit with so hard he's going to think he's going to hit with all your years and my years.
George, instead of the steps going up to your corner, we're going to get an escalator to make sure nothing happens to you. Don't trip on the stairs.
The only thing I'm afraid of is your mouth. I'm not worried about Evander Holyfield.
All you have to worry about is out my mouth, because we sure as hell don't worry about your right hand.
And another thing, you're going to be in trouble because I'm going to use Angelo Dundee as a cut man. He knows all your secrets, all your weakness. He's going to pull an Italian trick on you.
George. Hello.
Lou?
Yeah, now I know I got the winner. Angelo hasn't beat me in 15 fights.
And I'm down here drinking that Alabama water, so when I hit Evander Holyfield, it's going to be like Auburn whip Georgia. You in trouble now.
You may need the whole state of Alabama to get behind you. But you got to, maybe, George, you don't remember one thing, George. Evander was born in Alabama. And he is one of the only champions.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, I quit.
He comes from, so you keep building up Alabama, baby.
He's in Alabama.
Well, all right.
Keep
I'm in Alabama. I'm going to come down here and train. I'm going to whoop Evander Holyfield. I'm not going to let these people down.
Lou,
try your best.
Lou, all seriousness aside, let's get to the story about the fact that Evander may be stripped of the title. What's going on in the Holyfield camp?
I honestly don't think so, Al. I think that it's just a play on words right now. I think when the shove comes to push and push comes to shove, he's going to have to do it, because George understands it, you understand it, the media understands it, and the public understands it. Evander won the title fair and square, knocking out Buster Douglas. Why King and Suleiman are interceding on us here and denying undisputed championship, for the life of me, I don't know. But as far as we're concerned, we'll fight George Foreman for 1 title, 2 titles, 3 titles, or no titles. We'll fight him. I mean, there's no problem.
At this point, is the fight signed between you and George Foreman?
The fight is signed, and the fight will take place in the middle of April.
Now, Lou, earlier in the comeback, a matter of fact, we had a fight, George against Bigfoot Martin, and you had joined us. And at that time, you were pretty critical of George's comeback. Do you see this fight as an easy $12 million for your camp on the way to Mike Tyson?
No, I really feel that George Foreman is entitled to everything he can get. I mean, he's really put a new life into the heavyweight ranks. I think, like I say, he's a phenomenon, and I really think he's worthy of the title shot.
George, you think it's an easy $12 million for you on the way to Tyson?
I think Lou Duva should smile on that picture.
Isn't it amazing how he could talk without moving his lips?
Smile, yeah.
He is
realistically, the whole world knows that Evander Holyfield is in trouble. I'm going to knock him out in 2 rounds. Remember, I didn't say 3, but 2 rounds. Well, the only way that he can even think about surviving is that you're going to show him a technique how to stay away from me. When the whole world see that Evander Holyfield is running from a middle-aged senior citizen, they're going to tell him, boo, get in there and fight that man. You said he couldn't fight.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to put him in dreamland. It's going to be a knockout.
You're absolutely, you know, I'm concerned that I'm taking him out to California, out to Napa Valley. I'm going to make him train among all those big oak trees so he gets used to looking at a big guy like you know? And he's going to start chopping those trees down. I only got one concession to make for you, George. What I'm doing is I'm going to ask the commission to go along with putting a catering table in the ring at the same time so you can eat in between the rounds.
That's what I want to do.
I want you to do something. I mean, you got to look.
Evander Holyfield being the main course.
Huh?
Evander Holyfield being the main course. I'm going to eat him like we...
You're never going to get past the appetizer, baby.
I'm going to knock him out. I'm telling you in 2 rounds.
Well, listen, keep telling yourself that.
I'm going to knock him out. You get that in your mind. There's no way he can get away. You fell for the old trick. I moved and played like I couldn't fight.
Yeah,
for 3 years,
right.
I played all those tricks. I jumped in the ring like I couldn't fight, and you fell for the trick. Your boy belonged to me now. The whole world is going to see the heavyweight champ of the world and a man whipping people and drawing a Social Security check at the same time. I'm on my way. Nobody can stop me. It's my destiny to become heavyweight champ of the world. There's nothing that can stop me now. Not even your techniques. Georgie Bitten, I whipped him when he fought against Joe Frazier and me. I knocked him out. He tried to advise him, but nobody can stop me.
Nobody can stop
Nobody can stop me. It's my destiny to become heavyweight champ of the world.
All we're telling you to do, George, is show up.
I'll be there.
Show up. Please don't sleep. Please don't oversleep. You know you got to fight that night in April. Just show up, and we're going to have one hell of a fight.
All right, Lou Duva, thanks for joining us from Virginia, and we'll talk to you down the road as the fight comes closer.
Okay.
All right, Lou Duva, the trainer of Evander Holyfield. And George, last couple of times you're on us, you kind of exited out of nowhere.
Two rounds. 2 rounds. I'm having a great time here.
Can you hold the microphone?
I'm not falling for that.
George Foreman. That's it in this corner. George Foreman will get his shot at a heavyweight championship out against Evander Holyfield in the Atlantic City Convention Center, where we normally see Miss America pageants. They'll make it official in about 2 weeks. The date will be Friday night, April 19th or 26th. Holyfield will make around $20 million. Foreman will feast on $12 million. Then he says he'll feast on Holyfield.
I don't want to show Evander Holyfield too much of what I can do. I want him to think he's going to have an easy fight. I'm going to knock him out in 2 rounds.
Just a light tune-up, though, right?
No, just a light tune-up. He's not going to be no more than a tuna fish sandwich to me. I'm going to eat him up. I'm going to eat Evander Holyfield up like he was a sweet potato crunch dish.
He's become Muhammad Ali. He was never like this 20 years ago. He's great for food, huh? He sure is. And
heavyweight title, the one he lost to Buster Douglas last February. He's currently in training for his against his next opponent, Alex Stewart. As SNN's Mike Forrest reports now, Tyson hoping this will be his last fight before getting a crack at the championship.
All that was missing were the clowns. It was a real circus when Mike Tyson was unveiled to the media. Film director Spike Lee was even there, commissioned to make a pre-fight feature. There were camera crews not only from the United States, but Sweden and Great Britain. Everybody at Trump Plaza to see Tyson get in the ring and spar a couple of rounds, to see if the former champ was in shape for his upcoming fight against Alex Stewart 3 weeks from now. This fight was scheduled for September, but back in August, Tyson suffered a cut over his right eye while sparring. It took 48 stitches to close, and the fight was delayed till December 8th. If Tyson wins this one, he's got another shot at the title coming up, the winner of the Evander Holyfield-George Foreman fight. But he told me he's not thinking that far ahead.
Give you my opinion of the situation, but I never think about those guys. It's basically my intensity on Alex Stewart.
And after his loss to Buster Douglas, there were those who questioned his desire.
Yeah, man, he just wanted to get in the ring and fight and show people, like, well, I can fight. That's basically where it's always been at. You know, you can't be in a situation because one guy had a bad fight. They say, oh, he's over the hill, he's shot. I mean, it's ridiculous that people make those issues. You know, I mean, out of all those fights, one fight I lost, and I mean, I won 37.
So after this entire circus that's taken up most of the afternoon with Spike Lee making his movie, Don King in the background, Mike working out behind me, everybody's here, all the local camera crews, some camera crews from overseas. We just found out from his trainer, Mike Tyson is not going to get in the ring. He will not spar today.
Everybody wants to come back Monday. We'll be back sparring Monday. You can take shots every Monday sparring. I'm sorry, but today was our day off.
So if you want to see Mike Tyson sparring, I guess everybody's going to have to come back next week. At the Trump Plaza Casino Hotel in Atlantic City, Mike Forrest for the Mizlu Sports News Network.
Mike Tyson against Alex Stewart in Atlantic City, December the 8th.
And Tales from the Crypt comes an all-new creation of terror. A killing machine more devastating than Jason, more frightening than Freddy. He's Iron Mike Tyson. See Tyson take on Alex Stewart coming Saturday, December 8th, only on HBO. Pray for Alex Stewart.
World Championship Boxing presents Iron Mike Tyson when he takes his devastating power on the comeback trail against knockout artist Alex Stewart. Julio Cesar Chavez, 71-0, puts his titles on the line against WBC #1 contender Korean Kyung-Duk An. HBO Sports presents a dynamite doubleheader. Iron Mike Tyson, Julio Cesar Chavez. Live tomorrow, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, only on HBO.
As he's not the least bit worried about regaining the heavyweight title that he lost to Buster Douglas back in February. Well, don't believe him. Tyson fights Alex Stewart Saturday night at the Convention Center in Atlantic City. The weigh-in for that fight was held Thursday in Atlantic City. Stewart scaling in at 218 pounds. Now, he was to have fought Tyson September 22nd, but the match was postponed because Tyson cut his eye in a sparring match with Greg Page. Tyson, he weighed in at 217 3/4, almost identical. He has had one fight since his loss to Douglas when he beat Henry Tillman in June in the first round. All right, there are the two boxers. There's the tail of the tape. Stewart's 2 years older. He's a quarter of a pound heavier, has a lot more height and a lot more reach. The records, they're almost identical as well, each fighter with one loss. SNN's Mike Forrest has more in this fight.
Ladies and gentlemen, the final public appearance, the end of a long day, was the official weigh-in, 7 o'clock Thursday night. Alex Stewart first to step on the scales, New Jersey Boxing Commissioner Larry Hazard at the microphone.
Alex Stewart, 218 pounds. Mike Tyson, 217 3/4.
As he was leaving the weigh-in, I managed to get through to Mike Tyson.
I'm ready. It's not going to last. He's going to suffer very much.
Not you, Charlie. You look real focused, are you?
I'm ready.
I thought Mike Tyson looked sensational. I never saw his body look that cut up. And at that weight, Mike is going to be very fast, and I think he's going to be too much for Alex to handle.
This last day of public viewing began early in the morning with a long 2-hour news conference. Whenever Don King does anything, it's long. Each fighter had his say at the microphone.
I feel I'm ready, and that's all I got to do this before. Take that major step. You know, like Mike did it. My time to do it now.
And I'm in great shape. I'm just ready. You want to talk to me, I'm over here.
I grabbed Stewart and his trainer Edwin Virouette for a few quick thoughts on how they plan to handle Mike Tyson.
Everybody's going to think it is an easier fight for Tyson, but I'm going to say something. This is going to be one of the roughest, toughest fights for Mike Tyson. I'd say my fight is going to be a victory in this one.
Why do you say that?
Because he's a good preparer. He's mentally, I train him hard for this one. It reminds me a lot of this fight, Joe Frazier's way. And my kid is ready. I'm ready. I'm very confident. I mean, I think Tyson's more scared of him than he is for him.
Hey, Alex, you know Mike's going to come at you in the first round like gangbusters, don't you? Yeah. Well, he comes, he's going to get hit. That first round going to be a big test for you? No, it's going to be a normal fight. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to hit him, I'm going to win the round. If not, I'm going to go on and try and win the second one. Go on and go on and go on.
Later in the afternoon, Stewart was back in the ring for his final training session. Tyson had finished up his training on Wednesday. The next time Mike Tyson and Alex Stewart meet, it will be center ring Saturday night. In Atlantic City, Mike Forrest for the Mislu Sports News Network.
One of those I want my title back fights. Mike Tyson will take the ring Saturday night for a second time after losing his heavyweight championships to Buster Douglas. Much has happened since then in the boxing world. One thing has remained the same, however. Tyson's fights last seconds. Can we expect the same against Alex Stewart? Ed Berliner has a preview.
Ladies and gentlemen, Trump Plaza Arena, the site of Mike Tyson's last successful title defense. It is here that Tyson and Alex, the Destroyer Stewart, are scheduled, or should we say rescheduled, for their 10-round bout. Since his stunning loss to Buster Douglas last February in Tokyo, Mike Tyson has been on the road back to respectability, and he hopes the undisputed heavyweight championship. The Brooklyn, New York native understands that he has to fight to earn the title, but doesn't understand why he must continuously fight to earn respect.
I've won all those fights. One fight I lost, and I'm at 137. You know what I mean? Did that qualify me for any credibility?
The road back began last June 16th when he KO'd Henry Tillman in the first round of a fight that saw a lean, focused Tyson walk through the best punches Tillman had to offer. While most of Tyson's camp views his next fight as an annoying delay to regaining the title, Alex Stewart is not a fighter one should overlook. Aside from Tyson, he's probably the #1 knockout puncher in the heavyweight division. At 26-1, he's knocked out everyone he's ever climbed into the ring with one notable exception. When Stewart took on reigning champ Evander Holyfield, he gained respect as a force to be reckoned with when he rocked Evander during a 5th-round flurry. The fight was stopped, though, in the 8th due to a cut over Stewart's eye. What a round for Stewart! During training and sparring for Stewart, Tyson has looked happier and more confident than ever before. He even has a new nickname, Mighty Mike. Whether he's sincere or simply masking the fact that he has everything to lose in this fight, no one really knows. Unless he wins, and wins big. The number of fans who deserted him after Tokyo will swell in ranks. On the positive side, Tyson has nearly twice the experience in the ring that Stewart does. That's a lot, considering Mike Tyson is a one-round specialist. 46% of his opponents never heard a 2nd-round bell.
Mike Tyson to trap him in the corner.
Keeping all this in perspective, the Destroyer's fight plan is a very simple one.
He's going to try and take me out in the 1st round. I mean, he ain't going to change his plan now. So once he hits you, I mean, there are 36 guys, 38 guys had planned, you know? Only one work. So, I mean, I ain't going to go in there with no definite plan. I'm going in there to hit him. And, you know, I have nothing to lose.
Stewart, then, has nothing to lose. Tyson, then, has something to prove. Prove that one decisive round in Tokyo means nothing compared to the other 136.
I know I can beat him. I'm confident I can beat him. That's the main issue about anything. I never lost my confidence. I mean, I know who I am. I mean, why am I not the same guy that I used to be because I had one bad night? That's ridiculous.
Mike Tyson just 2 pounds lighter than he was when he fought James Buster Douglas, but he's in much better shape this time around.
Yeah, just a 1/4 pound lighter than Alex Stewart. I don't think it'll go 4 rounds.
It's a sponsorship agreement with the United States Olympic Committee that will result in a $5 million contribution to the USOC during the 1992 quadrennium. Anheuser-Busch will also participate in the USOC's Olympic Job Opportunities Program for the 1992 Olympics. Among those participating in the Olympic Job Opportunities Program include heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield, who is eager to get back to a program that he says helped him as an Olympian.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing for me and gave me an opportunity to put a lot more time into my game and my sport, which is boxing. And I thank them, tremendous for the opportunity.
Without the help of corporate America, these athletes cannot compete effectively.
In all, Anheuser-Busch employed 15 Olympians and Olympic hopefuls prior to the '88 Games, with about 200 athletes participating in the Total Jobs Opportunities Program.
It was a year ago this weekend that one of the great upsets in the history of sport took place. A journeyman heavyweight from Columbus, Ohio, who was supposed to be nothing more than the other guy for Mike Tyson in Tokyo, not only shocked Mike Tyson, but upset the heavyweight apple cart as well. A year later, James Buster Douglas has returned to Columbus and to anonymity. And as Steve Cyphers reports, Buster Douglas kind of likes it that way.
In an instant, he was famous. With the biggest upset in boxing history, he was the heavyweight champion of the world. In the weeks and months that followed, he celebrated, sharing the crown with newfound fans. But in the fall, he fell, and just as quickly as he appeared, James Buster Douglas vanished.
Next time you see me, full beard, ZZ Top, and the chocolate version.
Very much alive and living well, James is home and working in Columbus, Ohio. His office walls at James Buster Douglas Incorporated document his 8-month reign as the heavyweight king.
There's nothing like being a champion. I mean, it's everything it set out to be. You know, I mean, it's awesome. It is truly awesome.
Most of the time it was, but he adds there was the slow count controversy in Tokyo and the Don King lawsuit that hung over Buster's head.
After winning the title, you know, all that, I would erase that, you know, just blink that out of the tape, you know, sure. Edit it out.
There's no mention of editing out his loss to Evander Holyfield in his only title defense, or cutting the extra weight the critics claim cost him. Buster maintains he'd fought and won at 246 pounds before, but he'd never faced so much turmoil in and out of the ring.
I had a lot of wars going on before the actual war, so, you know, but I still, you know, put out an effort that I feel that is something that, you know, I can live with.
One step Douglas hasn't taken is the one back to the ring. Last week, though, he started running, and within a
didn't throw a punch, but he watched two opponents get knocked out of the title picture recently. The champ was originally scheduled to meet Iron Mike Tyson earlier this month, but that fight was postponed when Tyson injured his ribs. Holyfield was then scheduled to meet Francisco Damiani next Saturday night in Atlanta, but Damiani has pulled out because of a sprained ankle. So now Holyfield turns his attention to Bert Cooper.
Fighting a guy like Damiani, I knew I was going to have to make the fight, and I won't have more time to set up. Fighting a guy like Bert Cooper, I don't have the time to set up. I have to be ready to fight from the open bell. It's quite different, but, you know, I'm a boxer. I can adapt and I can change, and I'm looking forward to it.
Probably saying, just who is Bert Cooper? Well, that's smoking Bert Cooper. 25 years of age, 26-7. 23 knockouts, more of the size of Mike Tyson, not Damiani. You see Cooper here fighting Ray Mercer. He lost the 12-round fight to Mercer August 5th, 1990. He has won his last 4 meetings, and of course just coming off that impressive victory against the always dangerous Joe Hipp in Atlantic City. Cooper expected to arrive in Atlanta Sunday night. He will work out on Monday afternoon at the Omni, where the fight is scheduled for Saturday night.
Big news, heavyweight champ Evander Holyfield just can't seem to pick a fight with anybody, can he? First, Mike Tyson pulled out of their early November bout due to rib injuries. And now the man called up to stand in for Tyson, Italian Francesco Damiani, has withdrawn from his November 23rd meeting with Holyfield because of an injured ankle. Although Damiani received 3 medical opinions to the contrary, he decided to pull out because he wouldn't be 100%. And that leaves Holyfield with yet another opponent. Smokin' Bert Cooper, a brawler from Salem, Virginia, will meet Holyfield Saturday night at the Omni in Atlanta.
I truly believe once I start training, and, you know, that's going to work. And after 3 or 4 weeks, you know, you want to fight somebody, because it's like, regardless, because I truly feel that it's not the fight itself, is what I actually get paid for. I feel that I actually get paid for the preparation, because the preparation is a lot harder than just going out that fight.
The preparation might change a bit now. Cooper has a 26-7 record with 23 knockouts. He not only has the knockout punch that Damiani lacks, but Cooper's also considerably shorter. He's built more like a Mike Tyson. That means the champ just might have to step up his workouts this week against some shorter sparring partners, and certainly he'll have to switch his strategy a bit. The WBA and the IBF are both expected to sanction the 12th round fight as a championship bout sometime on Monday.
Mike Tyson and Don King were in Atlanta today, passing out turkeys to the homeless. They'll be in Washington tomorrow doing the same thing in New York on Friday. It was no coincidence, however, that Tyson and King were in Atlanta just 3 days before Holyfield meets Bert Cooper, a fight which King considers a turkey.
What he's doing is an insult to everybody. Nobody, every dollar you spending to go see Holyfield fight this bum that ain't even ranked by no organization should be used to feed the hungry and house the poor and underprivileged.
Holyfield should knock him out within 2 rounds, maybe 1. But if I fought him, I would kill him.
I question the good sense of any person or organization which would permit a convicted killer, Don King, or a man facing a possible 63 years in prison, Mike Tyson, to use them to insult one of Atlanta's true heroes, Evander Holyfield. I believe it is despicable for King and Tyson to come here to Atlanta for the express purpose of exploiting an extremely worthwhile cause for their own sleazy needs.
Well, already Duva and King are doing a nice job of posturing for an eventual Holyfield-Tyson fight, but Tyson's next battle's in Indianapolis on January 27th. If Tyson is cleared of the rape charges, look for Holyfield-Tyson in the spring, late March or early April, more than likely.
Situation for the champ and a no-way situation for the challenger. If Evander Holyfield knocks out Smokin' Bert Cooper in the early rounds, people will say he fought a stiff. If Holyfield struggles, people will want to know what happened to the champ. Promoters have tried to portray Cooper as another Mike Tyson. He does resemble the former champ in size, but that's where the similarities come to an end.
Bert Cooper weighs 215 pounds.
Holyfield, who will earn $6 million for the payday, has to mentally adjust to fighting a journeyman instead of Mike Tyson.
Heavyweight champion of the world, Evander Holyfield, weighs in at 210 pounds.
Well, listen to the crowd. Cooper will have a 5-pound weight advantage over Holyfield, but he will be at a decided disadvantage with at least one Las Vegas betting parlor making book on the bout. Cooper is a 22-to-1 underdog. A little later on during this hour-long Sports Center, we will strike up the band and profile the champ who is still fighting for respect. Welcome back to Sports Center. Back to boxing. Mike Tyson's Turkey Tour continued today in Washington, D.C., where he and his promoter, Don King, were handing out food to the needy. But Tyson was also dishing out some food for thought on Evander Holyfield's upcoming bout.
It's a joke. It's a big joke. And if that's how much, consideration he has for the heavyweight championship, to fight somebody like Bert Cooper, who quits. Bert Cooper don't only, he's not even unranked. Bert Cooper quits. He's not even qualified to fight for the title. He's a quitter.
Tyson and King will be in New York on Friday. Their Turkey Tour will continue into the Midwest next week. Chris?